Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Enlighten the Youth. Today we have a very special guest, Sherwin Ganpatt, and this is hosted by your host, Roman Renda. And today we're in a very different location, as you can see. And the goal today is really just to get to know Sherwin. I had the pleasure of meeting Sherwin a good year ago in Mexico while he was living there. And just recently, the universe brought us back together to help spread his message for his program that he's offering around holistic health. Now, what's really cool about Sherwin's program is he's used it personally to help recover from multiple injuries, and it was entirely developed by himself in order to achieve that. Now, he's finally gotten to the stage where he's able to share his knowledge around this holistic health, and we're working together to make a way for people to consume that and take it into their own hands of following his teachings. The goal today, like I said, is just to get to know Sherwin, and we're going to go over a variety of topics varying from getting to know him all the way to what is the universe made of. So it's a very broad range, but he's very passionate about what he does and just very knowledgeable about a lot of different things. So we'll start off with a brief introduction. So go for it.
Well, thanks for having me.
Of course.
I appreciate it, Roman. It's always a pleasure. I was really impressed meeting Roman in Mexico because he struck me as an individual that had such a passion for life. Like, I felt like we connected instantly because of that. And so many people, I mean, I'm 43, and it's been my life to follow my passion and explore fitness and health and what health really is and the expression of the human body. And so many people my age have fallen into a routine of where they don't live a passionate life because they're motivated by such a high degree of security, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I'm not saying it's bad at all, but Roman wasn't like that, where I could tell he had just had this enthusiasm for exploring how can you make life more of life? How can you make more out of life? How can you experience life to the highest level? And we only get one trip around this rock, and then our consciousness isn't the same anymore, and we may as well make the best use of it as we can. And I could just feel that exuding off of him. I'm like, that's really why I do what I do, and that's why I'm in the health industry and have been a personal trainer and strength coach for over 25 years. And before that, I started training when I was 10 with weights and martial arts and different physical fitness activities. So yeah, this program stems from basically a lifetime of training in sports and also suffering some injuries. I was in a car accident. I had a big fall one time where I was running. There was this big air inflated mat, and I was running and with this girl arm in arm, and I was trying to show off. So I jumped up and I turned on a hip, and I thought there was air in this pad, but there was no air. And I hit the concrete on the left side of my back, full out, and expecting it to be a padding. And it was just such a jarring shock on my body that injury happened when I was 21. And throughout my career in weightlifting and as a strength coach and a trainer, and even just my own personal training, it was, I didn't feel much impact from that injury when I was in my 20s and 30s. It wasn't until really my early, maybe late 30s, where I would feel the repercussions from that damaged area on my tailbone. The scar tissue started to impact motion to where I would feel pain, which is something I didn't feel in the past 2 decades, even with the injury. So it did lead me to think about what was the aging process that was occurring with the body and what was changing. And it's so this is where I had to start looking into more so the science of what humans really are, what is matter, what are we fundamentally made of, and how can we reverse some of this damage. Because I had seen a lot of very great practitioners, people, chiropractors, osteopaths, natural, every type of therapist you could name. I'd seen many of the best because I dealt with a lot of athletes, and they definitely had good approaches and good information to share, but no one was able to resolve the damage in my hip that was on such a fundamental level. It was so major, so I needed a different approach to allow the body to regenerate. And our nature, what I found had a lot in common with our bodies is we grow like trees grow in nature, and we grow with rhythms and cycles and with the seasons, and we mesh with the the forces around us that are cultivating our growth. So that's kind of where it came from originally.
Yeah, that's awesome. And just based off of that, I'm super grateful to have you on my second podcast. Like, it's crazy what the knowledge that he's got. But maybe we'll start off with the four fundamentals of your program, just because you kind of broke down what led you to learning about it in the first place. I think it'd be really interesting to get an idea of what exactly the program is and how you cater it to your own individual needs.
Sure. It's the way I look at exercise now is I look at it as almost a maintenance of a high performance instrument, because our bodies really work with nature. We communicate with our surroundings through a phenomena called resonance. So resonance is kind of if you struck one musical note on say a brass instrument and something beside it that had the same geometry and was made out of the same material, it will start oscillating at that same vibration and start making the sound. That's very much how our bodies work too. And it's what happens as we get older that isn't reversible, or it wasn't thought of to be reversible up until this point, is a severe dehydration occurs in our tissues. So a large part of aging is really just losing water. Like by the time you're 40 years old, you have about 60% less intracellular water than you did when you were 20. So that's a ton of water, and that the water is what gives the cells. It really goes much deeper than into just physical capacity. It actually, the water is the conscious aspect of our biology. Like that is the part of us that what we call memory and awareness happens in water. So as we lose that ability to stay conscious because we're losing our water and we get dehydrated, that's really what the loss of life and decay is in a human biological system. So it really is, how do you exercise to actually, can you get the water back inside the tissue, which actually depends on, it's electrophysiology, because it's how you can pull water back into a cell. It's a slightly complicated process. It depends on the surface charge of the cell, because water has to enter back in a cell one molecule at a time, and it can only do so if there's enough electrical charge on the surface of the structure. So as we get older and our spines get squished and our intervertebral discs get squashed, we're basically, it's dehydrating, and because of that we're producing less electrical charge, because our spine is also the generator of that charge. So it's kind of like a chicken and the egg cycle where we're going downhill. But if we can reverse that and do therapies that pressurize, align the spine, increase the density and increase the volume of structured water within the spine itself, then we're literally regenerating the battery, and the whole process should be able to be reversible, or to a large part what we normally consider to be the normal ravages of aging should be able to be reversed or prolonged.
So essentially, aging is just the act of losing water in your body, essentially. Like, it's all rooted from being slowly dehydrated over however many years.
Yes, and while that sounds oversimplistic, it's not. Some of the most complicated, most far-reaching research in the world is going on in the field of water. So I'm just going to name drop some people, because I'm not a physicist. I'm a strength coach and a trainer. I definitely have an education in health, but if we're talking about the physics of this, I just want to be clear on whose work I'm quoting. The physics that I believe is leading the way in the world is the physics of Nassim Haramein of the Resonance Foundation. And the work in water, one of the world's leading researchers is Dr. Gerald Pollack. And those are the two primary people whose works really influenced my understanding of the human physiology in a different way, where I started to understand training in a different way, because it was Nassim's work on basically unified field physics. So what is matter and energy, and how is energy information, how is information energy, and it's those type of details. I'm like, well, organization, information is, are we regenerating our DNA blueprint accurately and remaking a good version of me, or am I not getting enough information or energy, so I'm expressing poor quality information, and that's why my geometry is not being renewed? And is that what aging is? And that really is what it is. So it was the work of these two brilliant scientists and the people associated with them that really, I learned about their work about 20 years ago, and took me that long to kind of figure out enough to be able to work it into understanding how you can train aspects of this back.
Yeah, it's really cool. We're gonna get a bit more into those topics later on, including what is energy, matter, and just learning more about everything that surrounds us. But right now, I just want to know, who are your inspirations that, besides Nassim Haramein, that you use their work and implement it into your own? Because I know that there's some big names on there for sure. So if you want to just go in more into detail, like I know you mentioned Einstein a couple times, or like very big names. So
Sure. So
just how you relate it to your work to give it even more credibility, so people understand how that goes.
absolutely. And one of the things that I think is important, since this is a program meant to benefit the youth, is this is the most instrumental thing in my learning experience with what I do, is the people who have been inspiring to me. So from a young age, and I also think it's about not right now, it's also when I started, even training, like Bruce Lee was a huge inspiration because his attention to detail in his training and his logic and the rationale he was using to do things was a huge influence. And Charles Poliquin was a strength coach of mine who was a brilliant human being who taught me how to really put in the effort to study hard every day as if you were in university. It doesn't matter whether you're in a program or not. Every day you better be working hard to be the best that you can. Charles's work ethic was legendary, and he was the closest person to genius that I know. So Charles was brilliant. He was a great influence. But all throughout my youth, I was always so blown away by people that have achieved great feats in different areas. And it was like Leonardo da Vinci was a hero of mine, and his broad thinking, where everybody is thinking in these little boxes of what everybody else is doing all around them, and they're conditioned by the material put right in front of their face. It was just a few wild thinkers throughout history, like Michelangelo, Da Vinci. Nikola Tesla was a hero of mine. Walter Russell, who was a friend of Nikola Tesla. It's just learning about these people, these individuals, and learning about the brilliance of human beings like Paul Dirac, who was a contemporary to Einstein. It's like, I mean, before I even knew about these people, I wouldn't have known that level of brilliance even existed.
Yeah.
So it was really exposing my mind to people like John Anthony West, people that were true scholars. And I'm like, well, that's what smart is. I didn't even know what smart was, because I thought, the smart kids are the ones that go to school and get a piece of paper, and it's like that means nothing to me. That's like absolute. It's a curriculum of one little subset of a sliver of information in the world. It's
exactly.
like when you see a true scholar, they know the history from every different culture. Like, I mean, they dug under every stone, and this is what they teach in academia. This is what they don't teach in academia. It's like they know all of it, and it's like to be witness to people's work like that, where the breadth was that kind of magnitude. I was like, wow, that just gave me a whole perspective. And I was never shooting for anything to be like, okay, I'm trying to be like that. It's not about that. It's just they inspired me, and they are what I classified as, that's what exceptional is. And I'm trying to be as best at my craft as I can be.
So essentially, is your program a group of ideologies, or like, I think they're facts for the most part, from all these other scholars, and you've sort of integrated them into one thing, and then went through trial and tribulation to figure out what the best process to use these is? Or did you have anything of your own that you've integrated into this along the way?
Great question. It was actually, the major thing was using the physics to explain some of the ancient ways people deposit the information. For example, they would say the body and all matter is made up of the five elements, and they would say things like air, water, fire, earth, and is that it? Air, water, fire, and space. Space was the fifth element. So it's basically, that in Ayurvedic medicine, ancient Indian medicine, and in Chinese medicine, they use an elemental system. In Tibetan medicine, it's like, what were they talking about? Because I've seen people that are just brilliant scholars in that as well, like Vasant Lad. They're just brilliant human beings. And but what is this air, fire, water, earth stuff? It's like, because clearly they understood human physiology on another level that they were evaluating how we're functioning on, and the information they can take through the pulse diagnosis and the tongue, but their science didn't seem to reflect what I learned in Western science school. So I'm like, but I know they can't be. They're not full of nonsense. There is something to what they're saying. So what is it? But it was the understanding of the work of Nassim Haramein. It was understanding of the physics of what the universe is, what is space, therefore what is motion, energy, and it wasn't it wasn't necessarily air that was the element in the ancient Vedic text. It said it was wind was the element, and wind was the element of what they were describing was motion,
Yeah.
not air. I think people have misconstrued a lot of information. So being able to make sense of the ancient works was because of the modern research.
Okay, so why do you think that, like, there are obviously still lots of big discoveries and scholars out there, but why do you think that has declined, I feel like, in recent times? Because for me personally, I feel like I've seen little snippets of previous scholars and certain, I think it was Tesla had like a water run car,
Sure.
or stuff like that. Do you feel like a lot of it is just based around the economy of things and how it wouldn't benefit big corporations on why they're not being pushed, as because that's a huge discovery.
Absolutely. A
So
lot of
stuff
these,
like that.
yeah, these inventions have been invented, and the person to speak on this is actually Nassim, and there is many videos of him discussing this. But many technologies that use zero point energy that do things that are deemed impossible in academia have been done and have been bought up by well-known companies and been suppressed even by the government, and these documents are even released now. That's not even a secret in today's world, and it is because the economy or the bodies in power, whoever that is, if it is the government or not, want to push a certain economy. So you buy this and you spend your money on this and you get certified in these things so you could sell that, because that's what kind of guides the flow of money.
Yeah.
When Tesla was coming out with his free energy devices, well, that would crush the people would, like, the whole industry would be gone if everybody could have free energy to run the world for any length of time they want to run it. That was his goal, and of course that would interrupt society.
Exactly.
So a lot of these technologies that Nassim is doing this as well, and things of in the nature of space travel, you're going to need different sources of energy, like fossil fuels won't work for space travel. So things like you need to be able to tap into space and extract the energy that's, what Einstein referred to as zero point energy, the energy out of just nothingness. Einstein had said space is infinitely dense and it has more energy than what we consider to be matter.
Yeah. So if it wasn't for big corporations or however things go, do you think that would be the most? Because I remember you explaining this to me, but everything is energy, right? You were saying, can you explain what you were saying about in a like tiny piece of space how much energy there is?
Sure. And
then make it simple and put the context behind it too.
Sure. And this is probably the most important thing I learned from Nassim Haramein. And I learned this 20 years ago, and I just sat there with my jaw dropped and it still took me a while to wrap my head around it, but he said basically, and I think it was John Wheeler, the physicist, that said, empty space is not empty. It's the source of the most violent physics that are in existence. So and what he meant by that is we perceive space as being empty, but in reality, everything in the universe is polarized, which means that in order for something to have existence, its opposite must also be present. Otherwise, it can't exist. And if you had...
So that's like the theory of relativity in a sense, right?
In a sense, yes.
Okay,
yeah. And basically, if you could imagine it, that just theoretically, just taking the words, if you had everything, then you have everything and its opposite, then it would all cancel out and you should have nothing. So if you literally had the opposite of everything at the same time you had the things and everything in between on every scale, really every single thing, whatever it is, we could be very vague about these right now. It's just conceptually, if you have everything and its opposite, then you really don't have anything. Just from just using the language right now, before you try to think of that in terms of, well, electromagnetic radiation, it's like, it is that, but it's like, just theoretically, if you had everything in existence, you don't have everything because you have its opposite, and it would cancel it all out, which is what Einstein was saying. That exactly is what space is. It is everything, because the energy, as we get to that cubic centimeter of space, he said, in a cubic centimeter of space, so just like a tiny little cube, he said there is 10 to the 93rd power grams per centimeter cubed of energy. And that was basically like, which means like, if you could imagine 93 zeros in your bank account, you'd be really happy.
A lot,
Like,
yeah.
it's like that in one little cubic centimeter of space is like, they say can run the world for billions of years over, and that's available to us. And that was the energy that Tesla was trying to tap into.
Now, how would we go about extracting that? Like, of course, we have nothing out there that we know of that can do that yet. But do you have any idea of the possibility of extracting such a thing?
We do extract it. That's why we exist, because that is the energy that runs life. So the energy so matter is basically what is less dense than that infinite amount of energy there, and matter is literally a leakage out of space. So it's out of, you can't have perfection without imperfection. So that's why it's a cycle.
So, sorry to cut you off,
No.
but when you say space, do you mean like space, or can air also be classified as space?
It would be the vacuum of if we took this box right here
Yeah.
and sucked the air out of this
Okay,
box.
so like space, actual space, with that has nothing in it.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
So this is where the language gets complicated,
Yes.
because it seems like it's nothing, but we perceive it as nothing. In fact, it's everything, which is what allows us to perceive it as nothing.
Okay.
Because it's because of, this is where there was a gentleman, Buckminster Fuller, who was another huge inspiration, but it's the geometry of forces that it's basically forces and pressures that create geometry, that creates forms. And it's like, so it was the geometry of how these forces act on us in space must be in a particular way so that we perceive it as nothing, because it's in what's called perfect equilibrium. So we can't perceive everything because we're literally an imbalance.
So how would you turn nothing into everything?
So I should go back and answer a bit more of the other
Yeah.
question, because so so life basically bubbles up out of this nothingness, which is everythingness, because the universe, and Einstein said this too, matter isn't just floating in space, it's spatially extended. It's literally like, the matter around it is, we're suspended in space because the space is holding us there,
Yep.
because it's more dense. So it's like, so we are bleeding out of this infinite density. So, and the hum, that 10 to the 93rd power, that's what the yogis, it's called, that cosmic background radiation has a hum to it. And that's what the yogis in their deep state of awareness would say, that's the sound of Om. It's the
Yeah.
hum to the universe. That is the prana. That is the
So wait, don't stop it, don't stop it. Is it still going? Okay, so sorry guys, we gotta take a brief intermission. We're just gonna be back in a second. I just gotta reset the camera here. Hello guys, thanks for tuning in to the show for this long. If you guys wouldn't mind, I'd really appreciate if you guys can rate the show. Just once you're done watching the episode, or whenever you're finished up, just go to the top of the Spotify page and rate the show. I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you. And we're back after a short intermission, but picking up from where we left off.
Okay, so I think we were discussing, can we extract this energy out of the vacuum?
Yes.
And yeah, that's what Nassim's lab and a couple labs around the world are doing right now. They have been successful at extracting photons directly out of the vacuum. So there are labs that are doing this, and their goal is to apply this to space travel.
Oh, wow.
And it's they're working on. I think everybody in the world should really know about Resonance Science Foundation and Nassim's team, because they're just mind-blowingly brilliant human beings that are really trying to take humanity to another level, because part of it is to access the information in the vacuum. And like I said earlier, we are instruments. We are tuning to the resonance of the information that the creator uses to organize us. We're tuning to that like a rhythm. So it's like, and to do that, one of the things is the universe, if it's being, the universe, all matter is being remade, electrons are popping in and out of existence billions of times per second. So if reality is being remade at billions of times per second, it fundamentally has to be true that the acceptance and harmony and flow, the interaction that produces beautiful patterns, has to be more than 50% of the will of that information. Otherwise, every millisecond would be different, and we'd have zero continuity and never know who we are. So it's like, to have a high degree of order, which I think we could all agree that life is an incredibly ordered structure. Like, many of us don't stop and contemplate, like, how is this even possible?
Yeah.
It's like what is this?
Yeah.
It's like, but it's we're sitting on this rock. Like I mean, how life happens and what life is, but that is being organized from some information. And if that wasn't, if that's happening billions of times per second, which it is, if love, harmony, and acceptance wasn't the highest will of that, it would be completely unrecognizable moment to moment, and order couldn't exist. So that's why part of it is actually making ourselves better people and eliminating all the resistance that serves otherwise to those purposes in our heart, which is where it almost becomes spiritual and religious in a sense, where to access higher degrees of that resonance with that information, we actually have to tune our hearts and let go of things that are creating resistance and lower vibrations in our being.
So you would say that your everybody's purpose in life is to find that point of peace within, in the sense that you're looking for love, harmony, and acceptance, because the universe wouldn't operate otherwise.
That's a great way to say it. I like the way, there's a couple ways that I like to think about this, and it's basically there's the cosmic dance of the universe, the cosmic dance of Shiva, the cycle of life, maintenance, and and death or decay, and it's always the motion of the background energy is always going.
Yeah.
That's life. That is universe. That is the creator's hand at creating, and the cycles that build matter up, maintain it for a while, and then it dissolves back into the flow.
So it's really the opposite of peace. Like, it's just havoc.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
It's like, so our greatest, because how that information flows through you and your particular shape, we have our geometries that make us look the way we look. Because you're shaped differently, your motion is slightly different than everybody else's motion. So if you were an instrument, yeah, we're all guitars, but your guitar sounds different. It's like, so everybody's sound. So in finding your highest, I believe our goal here is to find our highest expression of our joy. And if we can do that, we're listening to the music that's flowing, because that's literally, I look at it as your own personal cosmic dance. It's the information that flows through you will make you attracted to certain feelings. You'll feel joy doing this. And when you're in that position where I feel joy doing this, and if it is correct, you'll also benefit those around you. It's uplifting. The energy moves up, and that's what that is very different for different people. Like for me, it's training. I've loved that since I was 9 years old. For other people, it may be cooking. They just get that and they love that and they're into it and they lose a sense of time when they're doing that. I think people have to look for that and follow that, and as they do that, then they're letting the energy that already is filtering through them, because they are channeling this energy. That's how they're alive.
Yeah.
It's like we couldn't run life without incomprehensible amounts of energy. So they are filtering this through. The trick is to, like Abraham Hicks says, just lower the resistance and listen to those impulses that we get that feel good. We have a compass. So if you have your compass and I have my compass and everybody has a compass, and it feels really good. It feels good to be nice. It feels good to be a good person. It feels good and then it feels good. It feels great for me to train, and then it feels great for me to practice my guitar and do art. And it's like, and for other people, they're a skateboarder and they just love doing that. And I feel people have to follow their passion and eliminate the negative beliefs in their head and listen to that, and they will let the music that the universe is trying to sing to them flow through their structure, and it will flow through them and make you go on your path.
Now, so in an ideal world, everybody would search for that feeling within, and ideally, because there's a lot of hate out there, everyone would be more loving towards each other and searching for that inner feeling rather than putting whatever out. Is that possible in a world of goods and bads? Or like the theory of relativity, to have good, you need bad. So I don't know if I stated that in a way that's easy to understand.
Phrase the question again, please.
So basically, it's not possible for everyone to go about this feeling of inner peace in a world of
Sure
I don't know if I'm okay.
I'll try to answer it.
Yeah,
Tell me if it
from how you understand it, because I'm having a difficult way of explaining it.
Sure. I think our piece is not related to the world around us, because the world around us it really is part of the illusion, because if we look at physics and things like I listen to a lot of Bashar. I've listened to Seth Speaks, Abraham Hicks. It's like, and even the religious, like, but Jesus talks about this in the Bible. It's like the world is a reflection. We're mirrors, and it's like it's how you see these external situations. And if you're the one perceiving all this negativity, it's probably because you're not following your compass. Because if you really were, one, you wouldn't be surrounded by those people overall, and it's like, and two, your mind would be, you're so far away from that. Technically, if you actually were vibrating so far away from that, they wouldn't be in your existence to begin with. But if it's possible for you to conceive of it, you may still notice it. But the goal is always to be staying on the sides of that, keep the things that keep our heart singing.
Yeah.
In all contexts, and that's going to be from taking your dog for a walk to sitting down with your girlfriend to going on to some festival with your friends to sometimes chilling on the couch doing nothing.
Yeah.
It's those moments, and it'll vary because everything's a flux.
Yeah.
But I absolutely think it's possible. I think the work is to be concerned solely with your own feelings and how you feel towards these external situations.
And for relating it back to the main topic, enlighten the youth, how would you, if someone was looking for guidance within themselves and just in this world, what would you encourage them to do if they're really searching for that? Like for you, it's been your training and your program and learning about holistic health. For me, it's been video and just spreading like good message out there. So how would you encourage someone that's a little bit lost in a sense to find that and stick with it?
The two most important things that I think help me personally do that, and which I'll probably continue to do for the rest of my life, is study great thinkers of the past. Study Aristotle, Plato. Study what logic and philosophy is, because study Marcus Aurelius. Study the great thinkers, people that changed the world. Like Einstein is like my revolutionary thing, but learn about thought and logic, because oftentimes people can't evaluate their own perception.
Yeah.
And then learn some of the fundamental physics behind how reality works. Because oftentimes when my spiritual beliefs faltered, I was always trying to be the best person. I was trying to stay positive, but sometimes very bad circumstances would happen and I'd feel down and out. And it's hard to cling to sometimes real positive attitudes when the world around you looks in chaos. But knowing the side of the science side, where it was from Nassim, where, hey, this is remade billions of times per second, that's a fact. And if it wasn't love and acceptance and harmony was the highest order, that wouldn't be possible. So you better tune to that, because no matter what, whatever you feel, that is still right. So understanding that this is the model, whether I feel that or not, and I don't actually have to feel that, because now I understand. I do believe it. It does make sense, but that's in the heart. And some people are more like, I think a lot of females can resonate it more. Just they can feel like this is true, and they get it.
Yeah.
But being a man, it's almost, you need that logic sometimes. And it's like, for me, it was the science side of understanding protons and electrons and neutrons, and
like the actually understanding why.
I want to know what that.
Yes, no, that makes sense.
And then once I knew that is a mirror of what they are saying in the spiritual traditions as well.
Yep.
I'm like, that is a mirror. I'm like, then those situations where I'm like, I'm lost and I don't feel like believing in this anymore, because I'm just pissed off or whatever it is. It's like, or hurt or whatever. It's like, I'm like, I still know it to be true, and then no matter what, I'll come back around. Because I can't. I realize I am the problem, and I have to change me. And the only way the world changes is if you change yourself. It's a mirror, and until you truly believe that, you can't do that. So you have to use whatever methods you need to use to convince yourself. And everybody's different. I need to take science to a level where I really understand that, so I can trust that, implicitly.
Yeah. So how did you, I remember you telling me a story one time of how you related this into your own life. There was something stolen from you, and then the way that you logically understood why it happened. It was at the gym?
Yeah, it was $2,000 stolen out of my wallet.
If you want to quickly go over that, because I thought it was a really interesting way of, like, shit happens, but you just have to deal with it, right? And why that's okay. So I know some people get caught up on that. So that is pretty much one of those situations where I'm talking about it, where I was really practicing, and in the beginning, and even still now, sometimes it's work to kind of
get that positive amp up.
Yeah.
It's not as much work anymore, but initially there was work, and I was keeping myself in this positive state, and everything was going great. And I go to the gym, and then my wallet was stolen out of my jeans, and I happened to have just some people had paid me, and I had $2,000 cash in my wallet, and it was like gone, and I'm like, that was my pay. Like I had $100, so I'm like, great, now I gotta like borrow money for something. I went from being on like a 12 out of 10 mentally, like I was like flying all the world. The gym was great, talking to everybody. It's like, and then like I was so almost throttled because now I was in a war, like how am I gonna live? I don't have a cent.
Yeah.
It's no, that's like so it's and that one really rattled me. It almost like it was like a dial wanting to move this way and me trying to pull it back, and it was so hard. And I'm like, I still have to go back to understanding that it doesn't serve me to dwell in that state, and you only attract more of what you are radiating off, because we are a mirror. So if I feel hurt, if I feel despondent by that, if I feel taken advantage of, it's like, or if I just get angry and bitter to the world, I knew at that point that that doesn't serve me. And as horrible as that desire in me wanted to come up, it was strong. I thought about people like Paramahansa Yogananda, people that would be like, whatever happens, you just accept it and trust in God. And they basically just sit there and trust the universe's will. And I use those as experiences. There's actually a great book written by Carlos Castaneda, where he talks about petty tyrants, where people that are, situations you're creating that are creating intense pressure on you, where this is hard for you to feel good under these circumstances. Maybe you have a bully in your house maybe you have a physical abuser, and it's hard for you to feel good. And in the books they talk about, there's the Paramahansa Yogananda side where he just talks about and even Jesus says, turn the other cheek. You just put your attention on what you are focusing on, and learn those things as, I don't consider them tests. I just consider them, they're things that somehow I was resonating at that level. Those circumstances came into my life. Now it's a time to, what do you truly believe? And that was really what I learned in Mexico. When you get down to your last dollars, and it's like, what do you really believe? Do you start freaking out now? And I think some people's path in life, they need to be tested. I don't think everybody does, and I think the ones that don't seek it, but the ones that do, you need to test it. And some of those situations where you lose everything, at those moments in time, I was developed enough to the point where they rattled me hard, but I could pull myself back at those points because I had enough of a foundation where I'm like, I trust in God and everything will be okay. Yeah, and it would, and it did. And it did, and you're not going to die. And it's like, and if whatever happens, and if you do die, that's fine too. Yeah. And it's like, and it's just complete acceptance and learning. And those situations, how do you ever know if you have complete acceptance if you don't have, in those instances, everything taken away from you? And it's kind of like, insecurity personally was probably one of my bigger issues, I guess, of like, do I have enough of it? And it's like, so to have all your security taken away and being like, okay, what now? Do you worry? Yeah. It's like, I didn't worry. I wasn't happy about it, but I wasn't worried. And then I would get myself to the part where, like, just keep trusting something good will happen, and go back and just use that as an instant, as a personal tyrant. It's something sticking you, and you're like, I don't care, stick me even more. It's like, because I'll still hold this thought because I value it more and I believe in this more. It's like, so at a certain point in time, I think certain individuals will almost create those own tests for themselves. Yeah. And other people that are very secure driven, they probably never will actually have those things happen. Yeah. So that's how I view it.
So the people that seek comfort rather than exploration, in a sense.
That's right. Yeah. Because, and what it takes for you to have confidence in your own beliefs. Yeah. Some people don't need to have their beliefs challenged. It's like like if they believe this, it's probably through and through to their bones. And other people, it's kind of like, well, I believe this until something really bad happens. Yeah. And then I don't believe this anymore. Yeah. It's like, and then like, I believe the Lord provides for everything. And it's like, boom, you got nothing. Like, you believe it now? Yeah. So it's like, you got 7 pesos and no water. Like, what are you going to do? It's, but it's, it's like, does it create panic in you? And one thing I heard Bashar say that I thought was phenomenal is, the day you know that you've actually changed is you don't feel the same way about the same situation. A similar situation will happen, but you don't feel the same. Then you know you've done something internally, something spiritually is different about you. Yeah,
that's awesome. Well, guys, we're coming close to a close here, but just if people want to reach out to you, get to know you a little bit better, and maybe check out your program, there's a few things coming together in regards to that. But where could they follow you at or find your information?
Great. Well, I'm putting up a website, so it's going to have the free program of a whole different way to rejuvenate our body and tune ourselves to the resonance with this information that's coming through space. So it's a whole new approach to fitness. It's going to be a free program. I'm starting a website at the moment. You could reach me at sganpat5@gmail.com.
I'll put it on the screen as well so people can check it out.
Thanks. And as soon as I get my website up and address, I'll get that to you.
Awesome. Yeah, so I'll keep you guys posted. You can follow the Enlighten the Youth page as well as send him a message just to stay up to date on what's going on behind the scenes, because I'm also helping him get some videos done for the website, and it's looking awesome. So excited to see how everything comes together. Thank you guys again for tuning in.
Thank you, guys.
It's been Sherwin Ganpatt and Roman Rendawa, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.